speaker is the fabulous Dylan Oakley from Freedom Has a Voice. He's a teacher of 23 years, and that's all he wanted me to say about him. So please help me to welcome Dylan Oakley.
Thanks, Deborah. I don't know if that was a case of modesty or poor planning on my part, but also I remember Deborah said the longer the bio, the less time you have to speak, so maybe I was thinking along those lines. I want to thank Deborah for organising today, and all the other workers, the helpers, the volunteers you're seeing around with the orange vests, and a lot of effort goes into these days, and but it wouldn't be possible if everyone didn't turn up in numbers like we have today. Pat yourself on the back. Congratulations, you're coming out at a time when a lot of people are almost being lulled back into a state of complacency again. You'll have to excuse my voice, I've lost a little bit already. But here we are, we're out because, as the slogan says, we are ready, we've been awakened, we've seen what's going on. And one of the ways this is manifesting is what Rube said just before, talking about the drag queens in schools, in libraries, and this filth that's being pushed onto our children is one of the ways that we're seeing this globalist agenda being manifest. Make no mistake, this transgender movement that's taking place has nothing to do with human rights. And that's what we need to let people know that we're talking to, that this is not about being sympathetic to someone's human right. They're trapped in the body that they weren't born, of a gender that they didn't want or something want to change. It's not about human rights. This is another globalist, big tech, big pharma, money cash cow that they're going to get our children on board. They're going to grow up having to rely on puberty blockers, hormones, and gender surgery. It's turning the reproductive system, the reproductive gift that we've got from God himself, and turning it over to the tech sector. That's what's going on with this. And if you've noticed, if you've watched and noticed, this has only really exploded in the last 10 years. Why wasn't transgenderism and I think that's the only term I can come up with. Why wasn't it being spoken about earlier than, say, 10 years ago? Why is it now every large law firm, whether it's media, whether it's government, whether it's the universities, the schools, they're all marching to the same drum again. You can see the fingerprints on this. If you didn't wake up and see what's going on during the COVID assault, I don't know how you're not going to wake up with this one. Everybody's saying it. There's no dissent. We see now that womanhood itself is in danger of being erased in language and law. This is an assault, this is an attack not only on children but on women. And more than that, and I want to get into the more than that today, more than that, this is it's more psychological warfare that we've gotten used to, or we're aware of now, through the COVID-19 84 agenda. That psychological warfare battery on our minds. There was a KGB, ex-KGB agent who defected to the US. You might have heard of him, Besnamov, back in the day. Some of you would have heard about him, and he did a really powerful interview in 1984, and he spoke about the way that the communists were undermining America, and espionage was only a small part of that. The biggest part was the demoralisation and the destabilisation of the country. And I want to quote from Besnamov. He says, "You changed the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interest of defending themselves, their families, their communities, and their country." He called it the great brainwashing that went over 4 stages. And at the end result is a person who is demoralised is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. And what I see going on with this transgender agenda, this movement, is an attempt to decouple you and I, humanity, from reality. There is a biological reality that all of our social systems, our world runs on. Look, I brought something to stage today. I did it intentionally. It's called the Holy Bible. And, you know, look, once upon a time you wouldn't be considered extreme to carry this around. But look, I wanted to bring it up. This is how extreme I am. I have a Bible with me, a King James Bible, right? Not that I'm a King James only person by any means, but this one happens to be one. I have a Bible with me, and that contains truth. And I'm happy to say it. And you know what it says in this Bible? Jesus said this. Jesus said this. He who created them in the beginning, male and female, he created them. And he said, for this reason shall a man leave his mother and father and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And neither will they be two anymore, but one flesh. And what God has joined together, let no man tear asunder. Now, I know not everybody wants to hear truth like that proclaimed as plainly as that. And who would have thought that maybe one day what I just said may be illegal to say? So I want you to see that this assault that we're going on is greater than an assault on... And when we list it, like Rube so eloquently did, all of the different things, and we've heard other speakers, and we've got more to come now, who are going to point out various different ways that our freedoms are under a massive attack, our individual liberties, our ability to move, associate, even to have cash to purchase things and have that anonymity and freedom. Beyond all that, and greater than that, there is an assault on the very fundamental foundations of Western civilization. And like Besnamov said, with the communists, if they can demoralise and destabilise a people enough that they can't even assess truth anymore, the battle is won. But this is greater than some kind of communist takeover, although I see the fingerprints on this right back from the early days of the COVID 1984 assault. This is, as Naomi Wolf said recently in a podcast I was watching of hers. And Naomi Wolf, for those who don't know, she's a leftist author, contributor to CNN, CNBC, Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, New York Times. She's one of the leftist darlings, but she's gotten out of favour, like many of us, because in the last few years she's been asking unapproved questions about the narrative, particularly around COVID-19 and the globalist agenda. And so she's been blacklisted as well. But she said in a recent interview, I've discovered, and she's written a book about the 10 steps to fascism and how scary it is, particularly for Australia, how far we've gone in those 10 steps. But she said, I've realised this is bigger than a political takeover. This is a spiritual war.
Yeah. Amen. That's what it is. Yeah. That's what it is.
And this is a spiritual war, and I want to make it plain today. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the full armour of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. And Jesus said this as well. He said, in the last days, watch therefore, and pray always, that you might be counted worthy to escape all these things that are coming on the earth. And I've decided, if you ever invite me to a rally, Deborah, Tricky, anybody else for that matter, this is what I'm going to talk like. And if you don't want that, don't invite me. Because there's no way in 2023 and what we're facing and the enemies that are at our gate that I'm not going to get up and point you to. We talk about, I think it's Michael G who's put on Cafe Lockdown 832 as the badge there, and you Google 832 and it comes up with for you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free.
Yay!
Truth has a name.
That's right.
Truth has a name. His name is Jesus Christ. He's the one who gave us that quote, you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. He further went on to say, I am the truth, the way and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. I love you guys. I can't give you any more than to point you to the one who changed my life at 19 years old. At 19 years old, I was close to suicide. I don't reckon I had much left in me. I was a young man who'd gone off on my own. I was failing university. I'd gotten into drugs, and my life was a complete dead end, and I mean that. And you can only ask my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. I was at wit's end. But you know, I called out to God at that desperate time of my life, and I didn't find religion. I found a person. His name is Jesus Christ. He changed my life. He put my feet on a rock. He restored my mind. And he's given me the power now and ability to stand up against this tyranny and to say, thus far, no further. Thanks, guys.